business. I got my wild cherry Diet Pepsi, and I got my blackjack gum here, and I got that feeling. Yeah, that familiar feeling that something rank is going down out there. Gutter. Gutter.
In the gutter.
Gutter.
It's a nice spot.
Gutter. 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 Gutter.
It's a nice spot. The gutter.
Gutter.
It's a nice spot. It's a nice spot. It's a nice spot.
Gutter. 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 Gutter.
It's a nice spot.
Gutter. Gutter. Gutter.
In the gutter.
Gutter.
It's a nice spot.
Gutter. 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 Gutter.
It's a nice spot. The gutter.
Gutter.
It's a nice spot. It's a nice spot. It's a nice spot.
Gutter. 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 Gutter.
It's a nice spot.
Gutter. The gutter. The gutter.
I've been down to Georgia. I've seen the streets in the west. I've driven down the 90. Well, hell, I've seen America's best. I've been through the Rockies. Well, I've seen Saskatoon. I've driven down the Highway 1, just hoping that I'd see you soon. 'Cause I'm coming home. I'm coming home. I'm coming home.
And if you can't believe it, it's a Friday once again.
Tonight's not about you.
No, tonight is about one very special man.
Tonight is about. And by the way,
What?
You're only doing him when he's got you can only do it with the cigar voice later on.
That is not true. I could do the young Michael Caine talking like that, but I could also do the Batman Michael Caine.
But you can't do the emotional Michael Caine. His voice.
I can do. I can be a lot more emotional. I do not want to bury another Batman.
Do you know what I hear? He doesn't like people doing impersonations.
He doesn't like people doing impersonations?
He thinks it denigrates his art and his creativity.
You are taking the mickey out of me, and I do not like it.
I don't like it. It's demeaning, because this evening is supposed to be a celebration of my canon, of my work, which
I've
includes
done-
everything
what?
from Alfie to Zulu.
I love Zulu. That was a wonderful film. I thought that was Zulu was one of his best films.
You're funny men, but you're out of shape. With me, it's a full-time job. Now, behave yourself. And watch this.
Yesterday, there was a world fresh off a victory parade. Banners still waving, confetti still falling, its heroes still smiling for the cameras. But beneath the confetti lay a malignant cancer, ideals sold at auction, truth being rewritten by the victors, and men and women who once held a line now left stranded and forgotten in a no man's land that lacked any nostalgia. Once they stood as giants, their deeds framed in golden lights. Now they are relics of a story that no longer wants them, repurposed or discarded for the ever-turning wheel of progress. The age of certainty has passed, replaced by a future of shadows where the lines between savior and oppressor, patriot and puppet have blurred beyond recognition. The new world does not want heroes. It wants symbols, and symbols can be shaped, twisted, and when convenient, erased. Tonight, we step into a world where the righteous are repainted as pawns, where legends are rewritten as by the one who holds the pen. The question is not whether heroes still exist, but whether they ever did, or if they were merely just another bedtime story told to keep the monsters at bay. Welcome, dear viewer, to the twilight of the golden age. And greetings and good evening. Welcome to the gutter. Everyone ends up here eventually. It is only a matter of time. JP, how are we doing tonight, man?
Oh, I'm doing good. Do you want to play another round of hearing about a dream I had this week?
Well, the last time we did this, it went very badly. So yes, obviously.
Oh, okay, great. So I had a dream last night that I was the wife and I had moved into like a really big, like spooky old mansion house, and it was raining really hard, and this woman and an old man just kind of barged into our house, and the woman started like yelling at everybody, and she tried to kick one of my cats. And I grabbed her and I slapped the shit out of her across the face. And then like a live studio audience just started applauding and laughing because I smacked her in the face. So then I started like really just beating I must have smacked the shit out of her like 12 times. Like I really went in on her. But the crowd loved it. And that's it. That's all that happened.
So you went, it's that full Chris Rock thing of I'll never hit a woman, but I'll shake the shit out of one. Only you inverted it, and instead of shaking the shit out of one,
I beat the shit out of her.
Beat the shit out of her.
For an uncomfortable amount of time.
Just push that dental work back into her skull.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. What a pleasant tone to start on tonight. Thank you, JP. Assimilating Knowledge has joined us. He says, hail, chat. I was on Assimilating Knowledge. He did his first live stream last night. Congratulations, man. You had a good showing. And that was a good time. So look forward to head on over to his channel and check it out. It was a good time. Snuggy Jr. has joined us. What's up, chat? What's up, Snugs? Good to see you, brother. Arrogant Ape, our producer's here. He's let us rejoice and behold the gutter. Indeed. What's up, Gutterites? Henry Bemis, as always, is here. Always a pleasure to see the Bemis. Kayla is here. I'm here, buzzed, but here. Yes, Kayla informed me that she has been drinking tonight. So this should be a good chat. Apparently we have bananas. Bananas are now in the chat. I also like circumcised penises. Oh, there you go. There, didn't see that. It's coming quite tonight. Gutter. Hello, Kayla, friend of the apes. Bananas, no dirty monkey gifts, please. I've had 3/4 of Di Serono, so I won't go to jail. Well, there you go. A dream, you say, activates video capture software. What is Di Serono? It's a whiskey with a square top. They used to have a series of really.
Wait, I thought Di Serono was an amaretto.
It actually might be an amaretto. I don't know. I don't drink it, so.
Well, I mean, I'm concerned because why is Kayla just drinking almond liqueur?
I'm guessing because of people. People usually dress.
But I mean, what? No, Kayla. I love Di Serrano, but like I would do like a Di Serrano and orange juice. You know, not just drink straight up almond liqueur.
That is a good call there. Dale A has joined us. Always good to see Dale A. I find myself alone and back in the gutter. Well, you're here with us. You're here amongst friends. It's good to see you. Now sit down and tell us all of your sins. In any case, let's jump right in tonight. Tonight, man, do we have a treat? The Golden Age. Golden Age is written by James Robinson. It's drawn by Paul Smith and inked by Richard Ory. I happen to have a really strange appreciation for James Robinson. He's a Brit, so inherently I kind of want to hate him just because, he's a Brit. But man, he can write at times. And this is a very, at times his Britishness comes out in this book. And I think I want to take, I'm going to cover this. Number one, if you want to get these books individually, there's the 4. The issues were released. I guess let me talk about this real quick too. They were released from 93 to 94. Issue 1 came out in September of 93. Issue 2, November of 93. Issue 3, January of 94. Issue 4, March of 94. You can get each of these for about $5 to $10 in a decent condition, ungraded to reader's condition, depending on what you're looking at. You can also occasionally find them in dollar bins. They usually don't make their way to dollar bins because they are oversized and perfect bound. And that's why you don't. If you want to save yourself some money and order it and just get a copy in your hands, the easiest way to do that and the cheapest way is you can get the graphic novel, the collected of all 4 issues, it's just over 200 pages. I don't know why it says 200 pages on the Amazon thing, for $20. So with that out of the way, I do want to have, there's a little bit of a preamble that we need to place on this book. This book is often heralded as a non-deconstructionist approach to Watchmen. It is also heralded by a lot of people for political reasons, because it really shits all over the House on Un-American Activities Committee, as well as kind of using the good old Yahtzee people as the quintessential villain and painting anybody that's against them in a good light, no matter what their particular philosophy being. Well, obviously you're here on the gutters, so you know that we hate the Yahtzees just as much as we hate the communists. And it tells you a lot that I have to not say one word and I can say another word. But this book has a little.
It's also funny that you almost said it by saying "not say."
Oh, nice. Well done. Well done, man. But yeah, so I do have an issue with that, and I want to be upfront about that. The other thing I want to be upfront about is I'm going to be very careful with how I present the first 2 volumes of this book, so I don't spoil it too much, because I do think it's worth a read. So we're going to go through the first 2 books, and then I'll have a spoiler segment that if you want to step out, you're more than welcome to, and then we'll go through books 3 and 4. Some of the reveals in books 3 and 4 are significant to the story, and if they're spoiled for you and you've never read it, it does kind of take a little bit of the impact of this story away, in my opinion. There's also a lot of people that absolutely hate this book because it seems like a non-deconstructionalist approach in response to Watchmen, which it really wasn't. I mean, Watchmen was already out. It had come out 5 years previous, and it was in the zeitgeist, but nobody associated with this book ever explicitly stated it was a response. The other thing I will say about this book, if you have no understanding of the Justice Society of America,
which I don't,
this book is painful.
Yes, it is.
They do not go. There are huge assumptions that they make coming into this, and that you are familiar with all of these characters, and that's a critical mistake that's done here. I don't know, JP, you weren't familiar with any of these, so I guess what was your experience overarching? We're going to get into the book later, but kind of just talk about what your experience was just looking at coming into it.
Well, I mean, as a plebe that has, I think, 3 copies of Watchmen And both the DVD and the animated comic DVD, I was pretty much, it was just in my mind the entire time while reading this, and I can't help but make those comparisons. So for somebody who's not as familiar with JSA, it was like reading The Watchmen, except none of the character designs are memorable, and half the time I have no idea who is even talking.
And so I'll add on to that a little bit. I am familiar with the Justice Society of America. There are moments here where I forget whose alter ego what character is.
Yeah.
Because that's the other problem this book has, starting off right off the bat. It has a huge cast. There's a lot of characters. And you have to remember both the character name and their alter ego.
Until you get to the end, and then you're like, oh yeah, Hawkman.
Right. Yeah, pretty much. So it's not something that you can just jump right into easily.
And plus, when so many characters are wallowing in misery, it starts to blur together.
Yes, there's a lot of moments in this. This is a high recommend for me. However, there's an asterisk on that, and it's a high recommend if you're a long-term comic reader. If you're new to comics, I'd avoid this, because you're going to get more confused and frustrated than you're going to enjoy it. But if you've read some Justice Society of America, you're familiar with some of these Golden Age characters, and you have a little bit of a background, then it's a great read. And that's a huge ask right now, because really nobody cares about the Golden Age. So we're almost 20 plus years past this. Oh God, 30 years past this. So it's getting in that point where it's not evergreen at all. Like, you have to do a little bit of reading before you can enter into this. But if you do that background research and reading, it's worth your time. And hopefully my plan for this show is that my knowledge of the characters and the book is going to neatly contrast against JP's complete lack of knowledge of the characters. And between the two of us, you'll be able to get a little bit of a feel for where your personal take on this book might fit, whether it's for you or it's not. But with that being said, let's turn to the chat real quick. And Kayla is just drinking it right out of the bottle. I mean, she's going full Trailer Park Queen tonight. It's just, hopefully you've wrapped a dish towel around it at least. But Amaretto sours are decent, says Henry Bemis. I don't anticipate buying this. Don't know why. No, for you, Snug, I would not recommend it. I don't think you'd enjoy it. When I first saw this as an uninformed Kim, I confused it with Watchmen, as many do still today. If you read a lot of the reviews that are on it. Oversized, perfect bound, my love language, indeed. Henry Bemis also says, I bought this whole series off the rack. I don't think Watchmen was that great. Sorry, not sorry. No, it's fine, man. You can have your opinion. Communist and Nazis, two sides of the same Marxist coin. Ain't that the truth, man? Ain't that the truth? I did not see that coming. There you go. That's our producer for you, ladies and gentlemen. I can definitely see that, Dale. Good thing I probably won't remember, says Kayla. And I caught that. And Watchmen is notable, but not one of more best. Top 100 of all time? Sure. Yeah, I think that's the general consensus. I mean, it was okay. I just didn't like it. And that's fine, man. That's absolutely fine. Prefer his Swamp. Everybody should prefer his Swamp Thing run. Alan Moore's Swamp Thing run is absolutely fantastic. I think there was a 90s JSA comic around this time. There were two, I think. But neither one, I don't think Robinson wrote for either one at the time. But I stand to be corrected on that if anybody can. Large Cape cast, that's always a tough read for me. Yeah, and it is a large cast. This has a lot going on. It's handled well. It's written well for a large cast. It just gets a little lost. Oh, God damn it, you Man-Thing militia babies, crybabies are always starting. There we go. It starts already. Kayla's coming out angry. I can see that. I think the top 10 from all time from him. And then Henry Bemis says, I have a couple of long boxes of 90 DC that I haven't looked at in 20 years. I think there's a lot of people that have a couple of long boxes of 90s comics they haven't looked at in a number of years. I base that just off the number of people that praise 90s comics. because if you actually go back and read them, they're awful. But jumping right into the series, if we go with book 1, we start off with it's the end of World War II, and we have the dropping of the atomic bomb. That's our moment, right? That starts all of this off because that ends the war. That's the official ending moment of the war, and we show how society is reintegrating. And then we show that Tex Thompson, the Americommando, is kind of being heralded as a great hero because he is supposedly the one that killed Hitler, that killed the reason why they couldn't send any powered superheroes to Europe, which was the Germans had a powered superhero who eliminated all the powers of anybody around him. And he was always bouncing around the world. So all the powered superheroes had to stay away because it was tragic. As soon as a powered superhero showed up, this bad guy was there, and oh my God, they were depowered and then killed immediately. So what you had vigilantes essentially that went over that were non-powered and fought. And Tex Thompson comes back a hero because he was the one that infiltrated and then killed the enemy. But then at the same time, you have this heralded receival of this great hero. You've got the other side of the coin, and you've got the other guy that fought over in Europe that's coming back. Only he has to sneak back because he's hunted. And just as you had Tex Thompson as the hero, now you have Manhunter, who's coming back into the country a broken man from everything that he experienced in the war. And it's at this point I'd like to stop, because going through this section, and then you introduced kind of the narrator, who's the Johnny Quick character. But JP, what was your take on that contrast of the two characters that are kind of the two primaries of the story?
Trying to think of how to phrase this. So something you said a little bit earlier, I thought I'm so torn on this book because, like you said, it's well written. I just don't think it's very well, like the ideas are done well, or no, there's good ideas and there's good writing, but the construction is just a little bit off. And so in the early going, we're totally fine because we're at the point where the book is introducing ideas. The problem for me is that the introduction of ideas doesn't end for about 2 books. You know what I mean?
Well, the first book is a sin, and this is a great sin, and we've talked about this a lot. When you're doing any kind of release, whether you're doing a release like this where it's a 4-book series, each book should have an arc that is self-contained. I should be able to pick up book 1 and read it and go, that was a fun story. And if I want to continue into book 2, that's great. And then it continues the story in a different vein. But I can't read any one issue of this because this is a 4-act story.
Yeah.
That if I can't read just one issue. So all of book 1 is character introduction.
Yes.
That's all it is.
I would say that books 1 and 2 and a little bit bleeding into 3 are act 1.
I disagree with that slightly. And here's why. I think it's act 1 is book 1 and it's just all character introduction. And then act 2 is setting the stage for the plot. Act 3 is the plot of the actual mechanism, and then act 4 is the resolving of it. And that's the problem with this, is the resolving of it happens. It's very comic booky, which is fine because it's a comic book,
right?
But at the same time, where we start off at with the depth of character development suggests that where you end up is going to be much more than just an issue of fights, which is essentially how it ends.
Yeah. Depth and themes, and then it all eventually gets kind of silly.
Okay, so apparently I got to scroll up and see what why are we dragging Heapin? Oh man, I'm not even getting into that. I'll let you guys keep that in the chat. But scrolling down, we've got Arrogant Ape says, sorry, not JQ. I meant Johnny Quick. Man, I am doing no favors for all. Thank you. I appreciate that. Our producer's trying to help. And then Admiral Wackass is here. It's great to see the Admiral. I did see a Wackass. I know you're in the DM group, but man, there is somebody out there that's also claiming to be an admiral. And I will have you know that in my Navy, you are my admiral. It's no one else. So thank you for that. Kayla, he says, Kayla, good to see you. I started reading through what you sent me. Sorry for the delay. I should have done it this weekend. I used Google markup stuff, but great to see him. Thank you for joining us, man. And Assimilating says, I'm more of a Heinz 57 guy. So there you go. And Awesome One has joined us. Great to see Awesome One. Thank you for stepping in, man. Good to see you. But as we go into this, we get introduced to Johnny Quick, and Johnny Quick kind of serves as the narrator as we introduce to what's happened to all the heroes that are going to be covered in this. And most of them have gone away. Most of them hung up their quote. They've hung their quote unquote cape up, and they've gone a different direction. And they've tried to manipulate themselves into normal society. And then we also get this. Now, I want to talk briefly about this because this happens a little bit more often than not in book 1 rather than any of the other books. And many
word diarrhea?
Many would look at this and say, man, that's a lot of words. And you wouldn't be wrong. But it's used sparingly and it works. It doesn't work as well as they wanted it to, but it does work. It's just very boring of a layout. Like there is so much more dynamic of a way you could have done this and still got this across. And even then, I think you could have thinned it out quite a bit. This
You're not a fan of the Star Wars scroll?
It just feels rushed. I still like this. It's just, man.
No, but like you immediately imagine all the creative ways you could have organized a page to have everything on it, but look better and be more readable. Or I guess consumable would be the word.
Yes, absolutely, man. I think that's a good way to put it. And so then we get more. We're introduced to the Green Lantern. Now we have to also talk about this because this is probably the hardest part. If you are a fan of DC heroes and you're a fan of the Green Lantern, you're going to look at this and be incredibly confused as to what's going on, because why is Alan Scott not part of the Green Lantern Corps? But it's the Golden Age Alan Scott. It's that Green Lantern. It's not the current Green Lantern. And there's two different Green Lanterns. So it gets messy. And this is one of the things that DC does poorly with some of the Golden Age heroes that they've brought up into the modern and updated. They're not doing a good job of delineating the two. And here we have a perfect example of that, because why is Green Lantern part of the Gotham City Herald? Like, yeah, he quit, but like, why did somebody else not take up his mantle? Why was he just able to like put his ring in a safe and say, I'm done for now? Like it's just, it doesn't feel right.
You also feel like the perspective is a little bit inverted on that page. Like I would rather zoom in than zoom out.
I think the intention is to make him feel distant because of the ending where he finally comes back, right? But it's weird because it's set up in book 1 and then we really don't deal with it until book 4. So there's that. But then we're also introduced to Libby, and she's the ex-wife of Johnny Quick, who's now with John Law. Yes, yeah. So John Quick and John Law, she went from one John to another. There's no metaphor there, I'm sure. But then we get some nice action with Robot Man. And Robot Man's showing he's still on the streets. Everybody else is doing their own thing and trying to get out, but Robot Man is still out there, and he's being brutal. And there's a distance in his humanity. And
which
then
is
we
a
show
nice
the Atom
setup for later.
Right, and then we show the Atom arriving at a testing facility and excited because he's able to actually do something. He didn't have to give up his cape. He still serves a purpose. And then you show the scientist, but then there's the suggestion that he's out. He can't hear. He doesn't play any notion to what the accent of the scientists are, which, shocking everyone. Oh my gosh, they have a German slant to their voice. There's German scientists working for the U.S. This seems like a little bit, it just felt heavy-handed.
A little?
Just a little. And then we close out the issue with Tex Thompson coming to meet Robot Man and saying, you know, I have a job for you. And then we show Starman, who's an absolute wreck because he helped develop the atom bomb and it's destroyed him as a person. And then we get Manhunter. Now, I want to talk. Shit. Oh, these pages are fantastic, man. I love the Manhunter stuff. And really, what this story comes down to is it's a story of Tex Thompson and Manhunter. Those were the two people. They're non-powered superheroes. They were street-level guys that went over to Europe and fought in World War II because they weren't powered, so they didn't have to worry about this great villain that the Yahtzees had that could depower you. And they were both very effective. But there's something. Tex comes back and he's a hero. Starman comes back, or Manhunter comes back, and he's a broken man. But he's broken in a different way than Starman. Starman is broken because he helped develop the atom bomb, and he feels guilt for it being deployed. Manhunter is broken because there's something that happened over there that he can't remember, and he gets visions of it. And you don't know what it is. And they set that aspect up really nice. And I feel like if you were to take just Tex Thompson's story and just Manhunter's story from these 4 issues and take everybody else out, all the supporting cast, and just distill it down to just those 2 contrasts in like 3 books, I think you'd have something that would be much tighter and a much better story. It just feels like so often we drift off and focus on a character for a number of pages for no reason other than to like make sure that we touch grass.
Maybe replace those other set pieces with just general like government intrigue.
Yeah, that certainly wouldn't be a bad idea. But Snuggy Jr. says, throw pies at Man Thing Militia. You don't get my mobility. Get him up there. Jesus Christ, Snuggy. I really love these colors. These pages are absolutely brilliant. Admiral Wacka says, one good times we call a lot of people gay. Absolutely. Everybody's gay in a good, but not in that way. And not that there's anything wrong with that.
Oh, hey, we got Animorphs.
I don't know what that means.
Oh, it was a kids' TV show where they turn into animals. Like the kids turn into animals and then back into being kids.
Gotcha.
On the right-hand side. That's what all the covers look like, is these really horrific computer graphics from the 90s of like kids turning into like a dog.
Gotcha. All right. And Arrogant Ape says, damn, James Robinson just wanted to bring back 50s Bigley. This is quite the cast. It gets insane because we're not done yet. There's more. And so then Manhunter wakes up because, of course, he's in like a flop house and people are coming to kill him. So why are they trying to kill him? How do they even know he's back? Well, don't dwell too much on that. We get some nice action. In fact, right there in panels 3 and 4, we get some like nice Frank Miller inspired stuff. And I really like it. The problem is it just goes away. And up till now, we're really fitting with that 50s ode. And then, man, I love this page because this is Starman, and Starman's going insane.
Mm-hmm.
He's lost it, man. And he kind of had it together, but when Johnny Quick visits him and gives him some cigarettes, and he tosses him a pack of Green Luckies, which I really appreciated that they were Green Luckies. It's like the Green Luckies drive him over the edge. And it's like, man, I get that because it was always special when you got a pack of Green Luckies.
Yeah, but his story is one of the threads that I think it's drifted lost into the background, and it comes back at the end, and I don't know. I don't remember I don't remember how the threads tie together.
No, and I think that's the greatest. It's both the biggest success and at the same time the biggest failure of this series because you've got this grand cast and you're jumping around and doing everybody's story, but in that process you're losing something because you're so focused in book 1 on establishing where everybody is that you've established a larger cast than you can really contain within books 2 and 3 before you get to the apex of the story in book 4. And so as you hit the climax, you've got characters that you really haven't talked about very much coming back in 2 books. And like this, and this is another good example. We're closing out with TNT and Dynamite, and TNT passes during the war. Dynamite is lost. He's looking for something, but Tex comes to him and it gives him hope. And so now he's found cause, because in this panel, in this page, he's getting kind of kicked out of Princeton. College isn't working for him. I really like that last panel where it shows him as a young boy working as the sidekick for TNT. I really like that. It was done well. And then we drift into book 2. And this is where the problems start. I think book 1 did a really good job of establishing it. Book 2, we start right off with a Tex. He's now a politician. He's loved by everybody. He's been given these rousing speeches. And he introduces a new superhero team. He's going full bore. He agrees with the House Un-American Activities Committee. And we have to fight communism completely. And it's so heavy-handed. Because you've got Alan Scott, who's Green Lantern, he's fighting for all of his people that are so unfairly being brought before the House Un-American Activities Committee, because they're just socialists, they're not communists, and it's just such bullshit. Like, it doesn't need to be there at all. Like, you can just layer that in, that it's creating a subtext in society, and not make it so heavy-handed. And it's an absolute failure that it is so heavy-handed, and it's aged incredibly poorly, in my opinion.
I stared at this page for a while, and I couldn't tell if that suit really doesn't fit him, or if it was a style, or if that was an intentional.
No, it's the suit doesn't fit him, and that's why he looks so pathetic in the bottom.
Okay.
Again, he's not a hero. He's a sidekick that had. There was God, who was the guy that created the Tick? I can't remember right now. I'm drawing a blank. But the Tick, the guy that created the Tick did this. He had a whole comic, and it was done in the animated series as well in the 90s, where it was just focused on the sidekicks. And Arthur was he was the most useless of all the sidekicks, because he was the most normal. He was just a normal guy. And that was the gag. Is that of all the other sidekicks, they were all quirky, but he was normal. And that's this guy. Dynamite is just a normal guy. And that's the gag. And it falls flat, in my opinion. I don't think it works. And again, because you're trying to force this, you're really shoehorning it in. And it kind of comes in later at the end, maybe, if you really struggle to justify it, but I don't think it works like they intended it to work. But then we get the reveal of, who he is after he goes through all these tests, and he becomes Dynaman. And he's no longer Dynamite, he's Dynaman. And he's this big, strong guy. And his suit fits now, and he's strong, and he's muscular, and he's got dashing good looks. And he's going to lead us up against the communists, and it's going to be wonderful. We're going to win. But in the meantime, we go, and now we drift back to other characters, and we get this absolutely psychotic but brilliant 2-page spread on what Our Man is going through. And this is, again, where it's lost a little bit. You've got a cast that's too much, and you're trying to bring across that Our Man is addicted to his pills that he takes to get his powers. But you're going, I can see how somebody would read this and be very confused.
Well, I mean, it's very subtle, learning that he's an addict because it says, I'm an addict.
Yes, indeed. And then we immediately jump back, and now we're back into Manhunter. And Manhunter hooks up with the former sidekick to Tex Thompson, and they're immediately followed, and people are trying to kill him. And Manhunter does his Manhunter things and just kicks the shit out of him. And we end book 2 with Alan Grant getting a summons for the House Un-Americans Committee. And just because we want to be really subtle, the phone's ringing. The whole time, the guy that's Green Lantern who put his ring in a safe. So we get ring, ring. Oh, I've got to make a decision. Ring, ring. Oh, I need to make a decision as to what I'm doing. Ring, ring. It's just, again, it's just a little heavy-handed. Just a little. And so from that, then we go into book 3. And so we get book 3. Book 3 starts off and we get now we're jumping forward. We were in 46 to 47. We've jumped forward a couple of years. Dynaman is now doing all the things that you'd expect a government sponsored hero to be doing. He's doing the rounds, he's got the promotion. And then we check in on all the characters. Again, this is book 3. Now we're checking back in on all the characters. John Law's an alcoholic. Dynaman's doing, or Johnny Quick's working on his documentary. It just feels like it feels like a rush attempt, especially to do it in a 9-panel grid.
Yeah, I mean, it even sounds like I can hear you struggling to recall the names.
Yeah, it does. I'm familiar with this, and it.
But like from my perspective, it's like the guy who's writing and drinking, the guy who works in the office, the guy who's making the documentary. So that's my outsider perspective.
Yeah, Dale. Hey, I had a suspicion that he was an addict when I saw a pile of pills in the corner of the page. Yeah, it's just it. The sad part is
this is a hearty recommend.
It is. I do recommend this. It's a good
I know.
story. The problem is, it's just at times it gets frustrating because they could have cut so much and thinned so much out. Like, there are characters in this that don't need. The only reason they're in this is because we need to make a reference to them. Because if you don't make a reference to them, it's like, well, what happened? Well, you can make a throwaway line that what happened to him. They kind of do that with Hawkman throughout this whole thing.
Let me ask you
Hawkman?
this.
He kind of fucked off and did the Egyptian thing for a while. And then when we need him, when the plot requires it, we're going to bring him back.
To do hypnotism.
Yeah, we'll talk about that for sure. This is a grim march plowing through many books. It is. But we're already on book 3, so we're moving fast here. So we're in book 3. We get the recap of where everybody's at, and we're doing a further recap on where society's at, and then we get another great page. And this is the frustrating part about this, man. You get these really well orchestrated and well designed grid pages that are then complemented by a very, very hardcore 90s style. It's done very well by the art team. And
can I get you to pause there for a second? Like, just
Absolutely.
really quick. To the people in the chat, you see the bird at the top of the page on the left? When Aldous keeps talking, I want you to stare at it and pretend that that's him.
Why the hell do I have you as my co-host, man? Jesus.
I don't know. It just made it really entertaining for a second.
But I love these pages. They're just excellent layouts for when they really go hard into what's going on in Manhunter's mind. It's fantastic. You get this rat motif. You get the eagle constantly. It's just really good. And then we also have to have, like, we're tying into James Forrestal's death. Like, what's going on, man?
I thought that was text for like a page or two.
It seemed kind of out of the blue that we're going to drag that into it. And then we get more Our Man, and we show him breaking down, and we show him making mistakes. Like, and I liked this. I really liked this. He jumps from one building to another and falls through the roof. Which is something you always want to see, right? As people are racing across rooftops, you want to see somebody just mess up and go right through a skylight at some point, or land on a weak spot of a roof. Right, and he just crashes into somebody's apartment. He's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, you'll be reimbursed," and he's messed up. It's nice to see heroes fail every once in a while, and I think that's what it does. But it does it in a well-constructed manner. None of these people are perfect. And then we move
it's kind of a hardcore win for that old couple, because if that's an apartment building, they're not going to have to pay for that roof.
True. Very true.
Just throw down a couple hundreds.
And then we jump into book 4. And so we're getting into book 4. They've done the reveals. They find out everything. And this is where the spoilers come in. So I'm going to stop here. If you want to bail now, because the spoilers begin. And it goes a little bit off the rails.
It's a little heavy-handed.
Yeah, just a little. So we start off book 4. We're setting all the characters up. We've got their montage sequence of getting ready to fight. And that's the rest of the book. The rest of the book is a fight. And it starts off with they meet in Washington, and there's a big meeting. And Miss America steps up to the podium and starts giving a rousing speech and explaining that Tex Thompson is actually the Ultra Humanite who's a terrible villain, and he's taking control, and Robot Man then proceeds to kill her because he's lost all humanity, which it kind of comes out of nowhere. Just
yeah.
like,
I didn't even really get it at first. I didn't think that, like, the implied action, I don't think it worked here all that well. I mean, the top panel, it looks like he's having
panel grid.
Yeah, it looks like he's having a seizure in the top panel, and then somebody stabbed a Go-Gurt in the second panel.
Yeah, this doesn't work. I do agree with you. And then the fight starts, and then everybody's fighting Dynaman, and these are great fight sequences. They're very well done. And we move through and do that, and then of course Tex is running away, but he's greeted by our hero. He's greeted by Manhunter in full costume for the first time. He's now in full regalia, and we get the fight. I liked the fight. It's good. Then we cut back and forth. We get a great shot of Hawkman. Hawkman's fighting Dynaman. But at the end of the day, Hawkman can't even... And then Green Lantern shows up after Hawkman's been defeated because there is no hope. But then Alan Scott's here, and everything's going to be fine because if anybody can defeat him, it's Alan Scott. But then Alan Scott gets his ass kicked. Then Starman shows up, and he goes, oh my gosh, I'm going to take you with the power of the cosmos. And Dynaman destroys him right off the bat by throwing a tire at him. And then he's like, oh my God, if I would have known it was this easy, I would have done it sooner. Which I laughed because it's funny. And then they defeat him by just stabbing him through the chest with Starman's broken staff. And then we do a recap of all the heroes, and everything's fine. Because everything works out. Manhunter kills Tex Thompson. Everybody's happy. Yay. The end. Is it a good read? It's a good read. Is it epic? Does it resonate through the years? Is it something that needs to be a time capsule book? No, absolutely not. But it's fun. And for $20, I think you can do a lot worse.
Do you think this would have been better as a 3-issue series or an 8-issue series?
I think it
could actually draw out these characters and inject like a shit ton more story.
I think if you're going to go the 8-issue series, then you're going to have to build up the Dynaman character more.
Yes.
And if you're going to go, I think a 3-issue series is much easier because I think you take out about 30% of the supporting cast and then you make it all throwaway lines. So you've got Johnny Quick that starts off as he's making a documentary on what happened to all the heroes. And you just do a motif of what happened to them. Well, they just kind of disappeared. Because a lot of these guys aren't powered because they're Golden Age heroes. They're just vigilantes. They're street level guys. So a lot of these people can just go away. You can just write them that they just took their masks off and then blended back into society. It's not like Watchmen where in Watchmen, nobody's powered. In here, you have people with powers. There are people and characters that are important. Hawkman amongst them, Green Lantern as well. They did a good job with Green Lantern, but they just kind of abscond Hawkman off into like, oh, Warren, he's just doing his Egypt thing. And then they bring him back. And they really pretty much just bring him back so he can hypnotize Manhunter to find out what happened in Germany. And what happened in Germany is the ultra humanoid put his mind into a German actress, and then they captured Tex Thompson, who was in the SS for the Yazis, as a spy, and transferred the ultra evil bad guy's brain into him. And then the plan was to transfer the big bad guy that ran Germany with the mustache into Dynaman. And that was the big plot.
As one does.
So, and of course, we also have the subtext that obviously big guy with a mustache that's German is the ultimate evil of bad guys ever. And the House Un-American Activities Committee was completely irrational, and Alan Scott's a hero for fighting against it, instead of protecting the American citizenry from the infectious communist plot that was actually going on. So,
yeah, I mean, the American dream is bad.
Yeah. So it is a recommend. It's a well constructed 4-part series that has a lot of problems, but it's a good read. So figure that one out on your own, I guess.
What do you think about Henry Bemis's question?
I'm sorry, I've been terrible with the chat tonight. We've got 4 main issues, like 3 one-shots. Kind of feels that way. So you're saying I should save my young... Oh, Jesus Christ. On a scale of well-written, comparing it to Youngblood, this is fucking War and Peace, man.
So way too long.
Yeah, well-written. Yes, Henry, also wait for Fraga's book. Yeah, let's do that. That sounds fun. But did they come up with a Sinestro chorus between turns at a band? Kayla was saying this episode went so fast. Henry. Oh, man. So I don't know. I like this for what it is. It's a really nice non-deconstructionalist attempt to do a Watchmen-esque story that takes Golden Age characters, and I think everybody's intention was to do them justice, right? There is heart here, and I think that's why I like this so much. It's very evident that the writer and the artists are trying to do these characters justice and bring them through a story that kind of modernizes them a little bit. It handles things with a post-war delusionment a little bit. That's they're becoming obsolete, but at the same time being corrupted by a political system that's being broken by an infiltrator. And I think that's the aspect of it that I like the most. Is there's something here at the core that's really, really good. I just don't think it's executed at the level that it really could have been. And I think part of that is the message gets drowned out in this massive cast of characters that honestly, a lot of them kind of blend together really poorly, even if you're familiar with the Golden Age characters, because so many of them don't have anything unique about them. And the characters that are unique are really relegated to like secondary characters.
Can you go back to the gentleman that was thrown out the window? You said that was a reference to something, and I didn't catch it. Can you expand on that?
I'm sorry, what was that?
The gentleman that was thrown out the window. You said that
Henry Forrestal? That one? This one?
That one, yeah. You said they refer to that as if it was something, as if it was a reference.
Well, it is a reference.
Yeah, that's what I was asking about.
Book 3, page 21. So let me pull that up so I can actually read the context of that. So Henry Forrestal was actually a politician, and that's not the right page. I'm sorry. Page 21. That's where I messed up. It's this page. And so you've got the mystery death. Forrestal, I believe, was the Secretary of Navy and was checked into a hospital in 1947 for exhaustion and jumped out the window, supposedly. And, there's multiple theories on that because of when it happened. It was post-war as far as what happened. Forrestal famously disagreed with Allen Dulles, who founded the CIA. He was very opposed to a lot of things that were going on in post-war America. And so the fact that he just randomly throws himself out of a hospital window has always been a big point of contention. Yeah.
Did you think that this was because this is one of the points in the book where I was really thinking about the Watchmen, like how similar the imagery is.
It is. It's similar to it. It's just really late in the book.
Right.
But it comes across as not so much a reference to Watchmen in my mind. It's an attempt to make this book fit in with what was happening historically. So it has some kind of historical basis line, right? So by the time we get to book 3, we're in 1949. Well, I think this happened in 47. I'm pretty sure Forrestal's death was in 47. But you're trying to just going over, you're trying too hard to make it tie in to what historically happened, to what was actually relevant at the time in the news. And the implication here is that it was Robot Man. Robot Man did it. Well, why? It's not really clear as to why, other than now you know that he's like working behind the scenes with Tex Thompson, who at the end, it's the reveal after this is, oh, well, he's got Ultra Humanoid's brain and he's the big bad. Well, why did he kill Forrestal?
Robot Man cracked me up a couple times. At the end where they're like, no, Robot Man, he's actually a Yahtzee. And he's like, me not care.
Right. Well, that's the thing is it doesn't fit. They kind of play with that too. And Robot Man loses his humanity because he's a robot, but he loses his connection to humanity because he no longer really has a purpose. Well, why doesn't he have a purpose? There's still crime.
Mm.
And that there's just little things throughout that again, it's one of those where the cast is so big.
Yeah.
All the characters that they spend time on, they don't spend enough time on any of them for their motivations to really have any depth or meaning. So you start getting to the point where you can really rip it apart.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like when you have...
It's the worst aspect of a team book. Like, if you're going to do a team book, you really... Book 1 does a good job. It establishes the characters. Book 2 does a pretty good job of establishing the stakes. The problems start happening in the last 2 books because book 3 almost doesn't know what it wants to do. It's like we established everything, but now we've got a huge cast and we've got multiple motivations, but how do I weave them? How do I weave all those threads into one conclusion?
Yeah. And it's like they do it in phone
calls. They all just start calling each other and go, oh, we all need to do this. And it's a little painful, but just a little. So overall, what was your take on this? I mean, you're not a Golden Age guy. I mean, outside of the episode we did with Dylan, where we talked a little bit about the JSA, you've got no exposure really to this because you're not a comic reader. So,
hey, I'm getting there.
I know
I'm
doing
working
a good
on
job, man. But what's your overall take on this? What's if you were to rate it as a comparison? Is it Void Indigo or is it 7 to Eternity?
Let me think about this. To get to the analogy I was getting at, it's kind of like you're making a piece of toast, but you only have a tiny sliver of butter, so it's going to end up being spread too thin. As far as a story, I mean, it's kind of tonally all over the place, like we were talking about before. You know, everything is gritty and serious at the beginning, and I was kind of laughing at the end. So I don't know. Maybe I think like when we were talking in the back room before the show, and you asked me, what did I think of it? And I said, I don't know. I think I'm still there. I think it just is. It's carbon neutral.
I think that's a good way to put it. I think the toast, as Henry Remus says, I like this toast analogy. It is. It's the butter is spread too thin. John's Longbox has joined us. Always good to see our friend John. I love the JSA. Dude, so do I. I just think that this is good. It's just missing something to make it great.
Yeah, I think I would rather go back and without having been exposed to it, I would rather go back and read JSA.
Yeah. Kayla says, but what else do you expect from a person traumatized from tuna casserole with mayonnaise? Ooh, man, she brought that up. I didn't.
I know,
but Kayla did.
I mean, she's been vindicated, but
True enough. But I think that is going to do it for us this evening. Next week is our 100th episode spectacular. We'll be sending out invites to Kayla, Arrogant Ape, our executive producer, and Eric Grant. And we will be covering Meta Barons. Just book 1. And expect it to go off the rails as one does. So hope you can all show up for that. As it is, thank you for joining us tonight. I will give JP his last thoughts for tonight's episode.
Tuna casserole.
That's it? That's all you got?
Yeah.
All right, then. Well, with that being said, from us to you, thank you for joining us on another episode of The Gutter. I will be dropping the link in the chat as the outro plays. You are welcome to join us for the backroom discussion. Have a wonderful evening.
This is blood for blood and by the gallons. This is the old days, man, the bad days, the all or nothing days. They're back. There's no choices left.
You're still here? It's over. Go home.